Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Fit Chicks Chat. My name is Laura Jackson, and on today's episode, we are going to be talking about metabolism. Now, specifically around metabolism and aging. So, I don't know if this is just because my birthday is coming up at the end of this month. I am turning 45 years old, but suddenly I feel like I've been having this conversation a lot. I think it's too because my friends and my colleagues are all kind of in the same age range as me. So whether they're in their 40s or early 50s. And I just keep kind of having this conversation around like, hey, I just feel like I've suddenly, gained 10 pounds, or I feel like losing weight is harder, or I just feel like I don't have as much energy. And I think my metabolism is changing. And I think a lot of times too, we don't realize what is actually happening kind of under the hood, which is why I want to talk about it. And I don't think we also understand what it is that we can do to prevent it. Because there's a lot of things that we can do to keep our metabolism revved as we age, but we're just not doing it because we don't know, right? So, which is why I want to have this conversation. Also, if you are listening to this and you're in your 30s and or in your 20s and you're thinking, well, this doesn't even really apply to me yet, these are things you should be doing now so your metabolism doesn't slow down later on. So you're getting like multiple bang for your buck. Okay. So let's just first start talking about what is metabolism. So basically, metabolism is this complex kind of network of chemical processes that happen within every single cell in our body. So it's all around essentially converting food into energy. Our body needs energy to live, right? And we get energy from, of course, the foods and the beverages that we eat and drink. That's in the form of calories. So calories are a unit of energy. We take those calories into our body. Our body then turns that food into energy that's usable and spreads it out throughout the body so we can breathe, so we can think, so our hair grows, so our eyes blink, all of those things, right? And then, of course, on the flip side, we burn energy through those physical processes, right? So, which is why that old age, we've talked a lot about this on this podcast, the idea of calories in versus calories out, right? We want to take in less calories than our body needs, and we want to burn more in order to be in a caloric deficit to lose weight, even though we're not going to dive into that today because you guys know that there's a lot of things in addition to that that need to be in place for our body to efficiently and effectively burn fat. I digress. So, what's really interesting though about metabolism is 60 to 70% of the actual calories, the actual energy that we burn every single day has nothing to do with actually going out and exercising. We all burn a different amount of calories just to be alive. This is called our basal metabolic rate. We all have a different basal metabolic rate based on different factors. Okay, so we're going to be talking a little bit more about that. So, metabolism is just essentially simplistic form. It's the way our body converts food into energy, food and drink into energy that we need to survive. So the idea is, okay, if I have a faster metabolism, then I'm going to burn calories quicker or more calories than if I was the same person, but I had a slower metabolism. And then this is where, again, we talk a lot about metabolism with weight gain, because if we consume more than our body needs, then we will add that on as extra weight. So when it comes to metabolism and aging, this is where a lot of people don't talk about that piece of the puzzle. They just talk about metabolism in general, right? And we have to understand this connection between metabolism and aging. So the thing is that as we age, our metabolism does change if we, like I said earlier, don't do things to counteract it. So I don't want you guys to get scared and think, oh my God, just because I'm aging, this is going to happen. It's this kind of PSA announcement saying, no, it will slow down if you don't do certain things. And it happens to all of us. So the first reason why the age factor kind of comes in is that we actually naturally start losing muscle mass about 3 to 8% per decade after the age of 30. I actually believe it's around the age of 35, but it's in your 30s if we're not actively trying to prevent it. So our body starts to break down muscle mass. And this really matters because our muscle mass essentially revs our metabolism. The more muscle we have on our body, the more calories that we burn at rest doing absolutely nothing. I always say to women, muscle is one of the biggest indicators of your metabolic health moving forward. And if you want your metabolism to be fired up, to be healthier, we do not want to lose that muscle mass. We want to focus on preserving it. Okay. So, muscle tissue, it also burns more calories than fat tissue. It's more metabolically active. So when we are have more muscle mass or we focus on maintaining that muscle mass as we're aging, even when we're sitting down doing nothing, our basal metabolic rate, that 60 to 70% that we burn just doing nothing, is naturally higher. Okay, so the more fat we have in our body, the lower that is. The more muscle mass, the higher that is. So the other reason why we end up gaining a lot of weight as we age too, and especially for women, is that our hormones shift. So we've talked a lot about this too on this podcast, especially with our holistic perimenopause and menopause coach certification. So I'm not going to get into all the details around that. But basically, as we age, as we move through menopause, our estrogen will eventually start to drop. And as our estrogen starts to drop, estrogen plays with a lot of other hormones and it will impact the way a lot of other hormones work. So that drop in estrogen will then lead to increased fat storage. And particularly, this can happen around the midsection. So, this is something that, again, we can't fight that, right? Our hormones, and again, unless you are in hormone therapy, but our hormones are naturally going to be shifting as we age, just like our body is naturally going to start losing muscle mass. Now, the fourth reason why, too, our metabolism slows as we age is because a lot of times we just don't move as much. Let's be honest. Our modern day world is not set up for us to be physically active or to eat real whole foods, right? So, as we're getting older, we're just not moving as much, and we're also not eating usually as higher quality foods. And that actually has not as much to do with age. It just has to do with our modern world. But we're just not moving as much, right? Also, sometimes as we age, we might have injuries, we might have joint pain, we might have even just a lack of motivation. We a lot of us have busier schedules. So that really leads to the part of, not exercising as much. I know for me even, I have to really plan in movement because again, even though I work in health and wellness, I work behind a computer. So I still have to plan in my walks, plan in my workouts, all of those things. Because if I was just, following my natural day the way that it is scheduled, I could go all day without moving. So we do see that as people age, they're just not moving as much, which again leads to less calorie burn or increased muscle mass, which we need in order to keep our metabolism revved. And then the other thing too is just our natural aging process. So our body just becomes less efficient at burning calories. Also, as the mitochondria, which is like the energy powerhouse in our cell, as that starts to change too. So there's all these things that are kind of just, again, they're shifting. We're losing muscle mass, our hormones are shifting, our estrogen's dropping, we're not moving as much, and our cells aren't as energized. There's changes going on. So this can lead to a lot of frustration, right? And one of the biggest complaints that we hear as we age around metabolism is I'm gaining weight. So weight gain with age, though, it's not just about a slower metabolism. And I want to make sure that we know that because, again, we tend to kind of like to blanket weight gain as one specific thing. It's like, oh, I'm just getting older. My metabolism is slowing down. Of course, I'm gaining weight, right? So there are other things that play into it. So if we're gaining weight as we age, also can be contributed to caloric imbalance, right? So we're often eating, again, the same amount of foods, if not more. But let's say even if we're eating the same amount as when we were in our 20s, when our metabolism was more efficient, what's going to happen is that our body actually needs fewer calories because, our metabolism is slowing down, we're not moving as much. So then what happens with those excess calories that we've consumed? We've got to do something with them. So we store them. So that's one thing. So it's really important that if you are gaining weight, you're also looking at, the way you're eating. The second thing is that insulin sensitivity, it starts to decrease. So again, this goes back to even with hormones. So, and not for everybody, but we want to be sensitive to insulin. It helps to make sure that we are processing our carbs effectively. And when we become more insulin resistant, which is that's kind of prior to heading into type 2 diabetes, then our metabolism obviously is affected by that. But this also can lead to weight gain. Lifestyle changes is another one. And then, of course, stress, right? Stress and cortisol are really underrated or focused on when it comes to weight gain. And again, especially as we're aging, because the more stressed we are, the higher cortisol we have, which is our stress hormone. And this hormone also promotes fat storage and also it is involved in fat burning too, but it really is around that kind of hold on to it. We're in a fight or flight mode. Whenever we go into that mode, we want to make sure that we are basically preserving. So our body holds on to fat. It's like releasing blood sugar for energy, but it's still holding on to the fat. And a lot of times, this is when too they call the stress fat around the belly. So there are other factors, of course, that why we do gain weight, but again, they're tied into us as we get older, right? There's certain shifts in our lifestyle that can happen. We're dealing with a lot more stress as we age, right? We're still eating the same way we used to, or sometimes we're so busy, we're eating more processed foods, more convenient foods. And then, of course, muscle loss and hormones. It just sounds like we don't have a chance. But don't worry. This is where the tips come in. This is where we go into how to boost your metabolism naturally as we age. So there's a few key areas that we need to focus on. I mentioned it earlier. The first one is we have to build and maintain muscle mass. Like I said, if you are a woman, please, this should be one of your top priorities that you are going to add into your habits or your shifts. So again, muscle helps us to burn, muscle burns more calories than fat, even when we're at rest. And the more muscle we have, the higher our BMR is, our rest or our RMR, whichever you want to call it, our resting metabolic rate. Very simple to do. Of course, it's harder if you've never worked out before. So we don't have to start here, but ideally, we'd like to get to a place of incorporating strength training 2 to 3 times a week. Also focusing those strength training movements on total body workouts, right? And compound movements that are going to work multiple muscles with one exercise. So a compound movement would be something like a squat or a deadlift or a push-up. We're hitting a lot of muscles at once, right? Squats, deadlifts, and push-ups are essentially total body exercises. They work so many different muscles. And that way too, we're not overstressing the body if we just focus on doing, some compound movements 2 to 3 times a week. Don't be afraid of heavy weights. Lifting heavy weights is really actually the only way for us to build muscle, right? We have to challenge our body. But we also can challenge our body without, I should have said, not just lifting heavy weights, like challenging your body. So you can do it in other ways than just lifting a heavy weight. But there needs to be resistance. So you also can do body weight exercises. A lot of times, though, you get to a point where you need to have additional resistance, like weights, like a sandbag, like holding on to something like a child, whatever it is that adds more resistance to the movement. But the whole purpose of this, so the whole point of this is to challenge your muscles. It shouldn't feel easy for you to do 15 reps of your 5 pound weights, right? Go heavier and less reps. So again, if you're brand new to any type of fitness, don't even add in weights. You could just start doing some squats at home, some wall push-ups, but being consistent 2 to 3 times a week. Go on YouTube, find a workout plan, hire a coach, whatever it is, but make that a priority. And then eventually get to the place. It's one of my actual pet peeves when I see a lot on social media, around this whole idea that really pushing just heavy weightlifting. And I love heavy weightlifting, but a lot of the women who, when they're pushing it, they are already of a certain level of fitness and physique. And it's really hard when you're first starting out and you're hearing this, like, okay, I've got to build muscle, but I don't have any muscle. I'm terrified of lifting weights. I'm terrified of going to the gym. So there definitely are ways that you could start. Even at FitChicks Academy, we have some follow along workout videos that you can take a peek at, and you could do them with or without weights. We have level 1, 2, and 3. The second thing is prioritizing protein. It doesn't matter if you're doing all of this muscle building work if you are not fueling your muscles in order for them to be able to build or even maintain muscle. So this is my second piece of advice, especially for my women out there. Make sure you are getting adequate protein. And again, this will just help to preserve the muscle mass you have and help to build it. So many women as we age, this is one of the dietary things that I see is that we're not consuming enough protein. So again, if we want to preserve our muscle mass, if that's so important, but we aren't even doing anything to allow that muscle mass to stick around, it's going to break down. So protein will help to maintain and build. So if we aim for around 20 to 30 grams per meal, I would say like 20 to 25 grams to start is a really good place. And also spreading it out throughout the day, research has shown has been better than consuming it all at one meal. We can only efficiently use a certain amount of protein in one sitting. So if you're having 3 meals and a snack a day, that would be spacing it out. You're having 20 to 30 grams. That would be around 4 ounces of chicken, 3/4 of a cup of Greek yogurt. Cottage cheese is a really great one. Tofu is an awesome source of protein. Fish, eggs, chicken, turkey, beef, tofu, tempeh, so many different sources of protein. So just becoming aware of that protein. And again, if you're brand new to this, it doesn't mean you have to start eating chicken breasts at every single meal. But even if you just start by prioritizing having protein every morning at breakfast and then get into the habit of that. And then in a week or two, try to then focus on, I'm going to also have protein at every lunch I have. And then eventually add protein at every dinner. And then it will become second nature. For me, the way I build my meals is essentially I think about what protein I'm going to have. And I'm not thinking about, 24-ounce steaks, but I'm like, ooh, I'm in the mood for fish tonight. Okay, now what fiber am I going to have with that? What healthy fats? So it just will start to become second nature. But again, you have to get into the habit of it. So starting with breakfast is a great spot place, 20 to 25 grams, and then start to move to the other meals as well. The other thing too is that's really helpful is improving your sleep. Sleep is the time our body rests, rejuvenates, resets, repairs, all the re's happen at nighttime. So poor sleep, it really disrupts hunger hormones. It makes us hungrier, so we're craving more foods as it is. And also, it can lead to a slower metabolism. So, really focusing on making sure that if you are stressed out, that you have a process in place that, before bed, if you're a high stress sleeper or lack of sleeper, which is a lot of people I know, um, having something in place where maybe you could journal before bed, you can listen to a meditation. There's a lot of great apps out there now, and they'll turn your phone off. Um, Reducing screen time. I also like to write a next day list. So just getting all the things out of my brain that could be swirling around that I have to do in the future. That's also really, really helpful. Creating a relaxing bedtime routine or having a really nice, whether it be a hot bath followed by a cold shower, actually is really great before bed. Um, and also really great if you have hot flashes. So that's something to really focus on is looking at your sleep. And then the other thing that I just want to mention is stress. So, stress, as we said earlier, it is so hard for us to, if weight, and this is something too I always find interesting around this age where we start to really see these shifts, is also at the peak of the most stressful times in our lives, right? The majority of women, the peak of the most activity and things they're responsible for, and family and life challenges on top of that, hormone changes, is around the time of menopause when our hormones are shifting, when we're starting to lose muscle mass. And it's very hard for us to be able to deal with all of those things that are being thrown at us. So, just having even some focus around self care and a stress management, um, something to do with stress management. And it could be different for everybody. It could be prioritizing going for a walk in nature. It could be around journaling, talking to a friend, doing things that promote oxytocin, which can help to balance cortisol. So, having some sort of stress relief, making that a priority is really, really important. Okay. So, really could just be as simple, like I said, as doing some resistance training, prioritizing protein, making sure you get your sleep. And then lastly is around managing stress. And again, that's something that we all have different. So those are the ways we can start to boost our metabolism and keep it boosted as we age. We should not see aging as a bad thing. We should not see it as, oh my gosh, I'm aging, my metabolism is doomed. We just need to tweak the things that we're doing. So if we haven't done these things yet, we need to start to incorporate them. Doesn't have to be all of them at once, but even if we just start with that prioritizing the protein, then adding in the workouts, or starting with going to bed and getting a good sleep and then prioritizing the protein, pick one or two to start with. But it doesn't have to be this place where we're just heading down the metabolism doom and gloom like the conversations that I've been having. So understanding those shifts, they're not bad, they're just part of aging, but these are the things we can do to support our bodies through it. Okay. So if you feel like this has been helpful, or you know someone who might be feeling frustrated by their metabolism, please share this podcast with them. Obviously, a lot of us don't know these things yet, and we feel very out of control. So hopefully that this is something that can help you feel empowered to know that it doesn't have to be that hard, but just starts with some small shifts. Okay. And of course, make sure to check out, we have our holistic perimenopause and menopause coach certification coming up specifically around women within this age group. And we dive into all the things that happen, of course, during perimenopause, menopause, and beyond, how to shift our fitness, our nutrition, our mindset, our wellness, how to handle weight gain, all of those, how do we handle a slowing metabolism? All of those things are talked about in that certification. Honestly, it is one of the top areas that people need help in right now and women need help in. So adding that to your coaching is absolutely incredible, or you can take it for yourself as well. So check it out, fitchicksacademy.com/menopause. And of course, I will see you guys next week. Have an amazing day. Bye.